Good morning. Welcome to part two of my recovery. Before I start on Brooks Rehab, I just wanted to say that no matter how bad you felt or how bad you feel if you have a similar injury to me, believe me, it does get better. I was fortunate in that I had a lot of support from my family, a lot of support from friends, and also, believe it or not, a lot of support from the doctors and nurses. So one thing I would recommend, if you're in a hospital and if you are recovering from an injury, treat the hospital staff really well. Even though you may be feeling neglected or if a buzzer's going off and you're like, come in here and turn the damn thing off. Just smile, be nice, and be kind, and it really will help you in the future. So I just wanted to say that before we started on the next chapter in this video. Thanks a lot. Bye. So, Brooks Rehab. I get transferred from the UF hospital to Brooks Rehab. I think it's the 4th floor where they have the spinal cord injury. So I arrived there, still unable to talk. I still have a trach in my throat, and didn't really know what to expect, not respect. But there I am back in the hospital bed again. The nice thing about the room that I was in, it also had a sofa that was a pull-out bed, which allowed my wife to stay, my brother to stay, both of my sister-in-laws, and both of my brothers. So that really helped me because, to be honest with you, when I first got to Brooks, I was terrified of the night. I was terrified that I would die. I was terrified that something would happen to me. And it was a scary time for me. But things got better as I got introduced to the people that were going to be taking care of me, the therapists. I had met a series of doctors that would come in and a series of therapists that would come in. Even 2 girls that came in and played instruments for me. They would allow me to bang on a drum or something like that. So it was very interesting. I had a speech therapist. I had to learn how to speak again when they took the trach out. I also had to learn how to swallow again. And with a series of exercises, I can't tell you how many machines I had to blow in and out of to see how strong my breath was. And then all of the different exercises that I had to do with my hands and my feet, and some of it was really hard and some of it was fairly easy. But to start with, having the trach still in my throat was a real problem for me, and it was just probably one of the worst experiences that I have had so far in this recovery process. The trach basically was in my neck and was allowing me to breathe. At some point, somebody replaced it with a larger trach than I was supposed to have, or they didn't have one, or I can't remember exactly what happened, but at any rate, it was causing me a real problem. And they had to take me to emergency next door in Memorial Hospital to take it out and stick a different one in, which is interesting because they had to take me in an ambulance, and Memorial Hospital is literally a 5-minute walk from where I was. So fortunately, my wife and I arrived in the emergency room, and they came in and they said, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And of course I couldn't talk, so my wife had to explain. And then of course, they ask you what kind of drugs you're on, and you have to give you all of that kind of stuff, and where you're from, and how did this happen. And so in that, they said, okay, we're going to go find a new trach for you and put it in. In the meantime, because I was in the emergency room at the hospital, there had been some kind of shooting, and I don't know whether you've ever seen this, but I've seen it on TV, but I never really thought that it would happen. And hold up one second, I got to stop. Anyway, I'm sorry, nurse came in. Back to Memorial Hospital. So we're in the emergency room there, and two young lads came in that were shot. And they had to do, I can't remember what they call it in the medical world, but everybody just drops everything and starts running around doing triage on these poor kids. And like when I saw one of them go by, he could only been about 16, and it was kind of horrifying to see that. So we got held up. So bearing in mind that I was in there for quite a long time, and finally they came and replaced my trach, and then I think it was a Saturday night. So we waited a long time for another ambulance to come and move me 500 yards back into Brooks Hospital. So that was a fun day, and it just was very traumatic for me and for my wife, but it all worked out eventually. So I think we got back to the hospital. It may have been 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. I'm not quite so sure, but so that was one of the first experiences I had. The other thing was I was having issues with my stomach. I think I was either having constipation or diarrhea or whatever that was. So they recommended that I should have an X-ray. So they X-rayed my stomach, and again I had to go back over to Memorial. There's actually a bridge that takes you across. One of my doctors said, "Don't ever go across that bridge." I don't know why, but apparently he didn't like Memorial too much, but they were pretty good to me. So having an X-ray on my belly to see what was going on inside, and you go over there and you're in a wheelchair or gurney. I think I was in a gurney, and the people there in the X-ray didn't realize that I was a quadriplegic. So first of all they had to go find a Hoyer and then put me in, and then they had to put a board behind my back so they could take the X-rays. And the poor girl was trying to put the board in by herself. She didn't have any help, and of course I fell back and hit my head on the board, and that was not a good experience. And of course, bear in mind I've got all of these nuts and bolts in my neck, and I still had stitches, so that was pretty scary. Somewhere in there, we were just talking about an X-ray. I had to have another X-ray. It was to see the strength of my breathing, I think. They had to take an X-ray up here to see how strong my breath was, so that they could determine whether they could take my trach out. And we were crossing our fingers and we hope that they can take the trach out. We can hope that we can take the trach out. And I seem to remember they came back and said, well, everything looks good. But this was like on a Thursday. And they said, but we want to leave it until Monday to take it out. And, oh, by the way, Monday's a holiday, so we won't be able to take it out until Tuesday. It's kind of disappointing, and because you got to remember that not only the pain, but having to do the suction to get the phlegm out, and not being able to talk, and still being really thirsty. Although they did allow me, I think, at that point, to have some ice chips and these little ice lollipops, if you know what that is. It's a frozen ice cream, like a icy, which helped a lot. I had to kind of rub them inside my mouth and suck on them and that kind of stuff. So, but eventually they came and they were going to take my trach out, and I think everybody was there. There was a lot of people in my room. This is, of course, pre-COVID, so everybody was allowed to come in. And they took my trach out, and they took the Band-Aid off it, and they said, they put a Band-Aid over it, that's right. And they said, okay, talk. And I said, hello, my name is Peter. And everybody started crying. And they said, oh my God, you still have your accent. That's so good. We didn't know whether you were going to be sounding like a robot or something. I think a lot of people thought that, I would have to have one of those little voice boxes in my throat, but I didn't. So the next thing I said, how y'all doing? I'm from Georgia. And it was kind of funny. Everybody started freaking out. And then I said, no, I'm not from Georgia. I'm still from England. So that was kind of funny to see everybody crying and laughing at the same time. So anyway, let me stop a second because I got to figure out what happened next.